Hello, I'm David Tyree. You're plugged in with Jay.
Yo, what's good? It's your homeboy T-Pain. Right now, at this very exact moment, you plugged in with Jay.
Plugged in with Jay right now. This is Jay O'Man.
Turn up, turn up, turn up.
My boy Jay Perry.
You're listening to my boy, Jay the Plug.
My boy, Jay the Plug.
You're listening to my boy, Jay the Plug.
You're listening to my boy, Jay the Plug.
You're listening to my boy, Jay the Plug.
Jay the Plug.
You got many winners from anyone. You're listening to my boy, Jay the Plug.
Get plugged up, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Plugged In with Jay. I am here with a very special guest, probably the most incredible play in NFL history made by this man. Needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. David Tyree, how are you today, my friend?
Man, Jay, I'm thrilled, bro. We plugged in with you, man. Appreciate you having me.
I love it, man. Thank you so much for joining us, man. I know we've been talking for a little while, and I appreciate you being able to make this happen. Your lovely wife been fantastic with getting everything set up, so I really appreciate y'all.
No doubt, man. It takes a team, man. My wife's amazing. 7 crazy kids, so we definitely got a lot of communication. We got to stay on par with, no doubt.
I love it. So let's get it started, shall we? You were selected by the Giants 2003 NFL draft in the 6th round. I always love to ask this question. Where were you, if you can remember, when you got that call?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That was pretty easy. I mean, I didn't have like the greatest expectations to draft. Of course, you're hoping, you hear all kinds of things, but I was right at the crib in Montclair, New Jersey, sitting on the couch with mom and dad. It was definitely no real event. It was just watching with hope. And so, yeah, man, I actually snoozed off a little bit. It was only 2 days at the time instead of 3. And eventually, as I kind of, got my bearings right, my phone rang and it was the Giants.
That's awesome. All right. So was there another team that you were kind of hoping for?
Well, you know what? There's only a few teams. I remember taking a visit to Miami. I think I had 2 visits. I think it was Miami and Chicago. Chicago worked me out. I definitely remember hearing from the Ravens pre-draft. I think at some point I ended up talking to the Giants, but I never got the sense that there was like this deeper connection. So honestly, you just never know, like the crazy things that you hear people say, like I can go as high as the 3rd round to not at all. They actually end up becoming true. Like it's pretty weird. And having the experience of working in the front office, you actually see how that can possibly happen based on needs to, just kind of random things in the way they fall. So short story, man. Yeah, it was real uneventful. But it was definitely a dream come true to be a kid from Montclair, New Jersey, grind the way I had to get it out of Syracuse and to get that call.
Yes, sir. So you were an executive there for a little while. You played the game with the Giants, had a short stint with the Ravens. What you have going on right now is a new podcast that just dropped called Catch the Moment. Can you tell us what we can expect out of that? I heard the first episode, man. It's fantastic.
Yeah, man, it's going to be exciting. I mean, it's really the whole premise behind it. Of course, I'm known for a moment. I wrote a book right not too long after the catch called More Than Just a Catch. And I think when people have experiences of achievement, we kind of glory in the achievement or the moment. And there's so much process, there's so much journey, there's so much pain points. And that's really the whole idea is, people who've accomplished something or on their way, maybe arriving at a moment, intriguing people across industry. We want to extract out the story, the process, the journey, the pain points, and deliver the value to the listeners in that way so that they can be encouraged they have that moment as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, anybody who's listening to this, anybody who's watching this, make sure you go subscribe right now anywhere that you can on any platform. It's
all over the place. Get it on,
it's
on YouTube, go to some video, audio, hit this up.
Yeah, if y'all want a good pick-me-up too, if y'all want a good way to start out your day, go follow my guy on IG. Seriously, watch his videos. It's some good stuff, man. It's funny. So the greatest play in Super Bowl history, as noted by ESPN and pretty much anyone who pays any kind of attention to football.
Who has a brain, right? Anyone has a brain.
Yeah, I remember putting a vote up and that one won by a large margin. How old has it gotten talking about the catch. Like anytime that anybody brings it up, you're like, man, this again. Okay, cool. Have you just has something like clicked in your brain to where it's the same answer over and over?
You know, the funny thing is because I've never created my own audience to talk about the kids. I'm going about my life. You know, like your kids don't really care. You know, like, my wife's really not impressed. It's like this iconic memorial that you live with, you can return to. It's great to visit, but you really have to keep moving in life. I wanted to do that in my career, but it didn't work out that way with the injuries and an immediate decline. So you have to recognize that if my identity was locked up into that moment, I'd be in tough nuts, right? So ultimately, it's kind of cool for me because I'm not giving that much attention to it on my daily grind. As a husband, father, all these other areas that I kind of deem to be more meaningful, that kind of fills my daily grind and keeps me humble enough so that when the conversations do come up, it's like, yeah, to have a moment that's that special in the minds of so many people for all kinds of different reasons, I can usually embrace it. Now, it can get tired, like in a random conversation, like after the first 2 minutes, like okay, what else are we gonna talk about? But
Right.
that's usually more face-to-face kind of stuff versus, hey man, I totally get it. That's what people connect with, and I certainly want to connect with people so that they can share their moment.
Absolutely. You were a guest on Jimmy Kimmel right after that Super Bowl. I saw one of the guests that was with you out there who he's hysterical. What was it like? I'll just get to it. What was it like getting to meet Flava Flav?
Talk about it, bro. I mean, so for me, that was definitely like a moment for me, right? I'm an 80s baby. I'm 1980. Fight the power, everything, right? So 911 is a joke. It was like, number one, for overnight to be this unknown dude, and the next thing you know, I'm flying out doing Kimmel and Ellen. That was just one thing. But then Flav's on the show, and bro, everything is real with Flav. It's like the energy's 1,000. Just the impromptu Flav bars are just crazy. And the even better part was I've only met him twice, but the second time was actually during the 2012 Super Bowl parade when the Giants won it again. And me and Flav, we were kicking it. I actually co-hosted it with Channel 11, the parade. And me and Flav was kicking it like the whole afternoon, man. It was fantastic.
It's the ultimate hype man. As I'm watching that clip, I'm like, man, this dude hyping everything up. But I'm like, man, kind of, let him answer the question.
Bro, he's like he's on 1,000. It's like, it don't even matter. You can't even get mad. The dude like, yo, did the guy
Flav, yo, Giants. I'm like, bro,
it's crazy. It's crazy. He'll make your moment his moment. Don't even matter. It's fantastic.
I saw that, man. I've spoken with a couple of other Giants players. I've had the pleasure of having David Wilson, Ruben Randall, had them on the show. I've spoken to them about the locker room atmosphere with the one Eli Manning and his prankster ways. Have you bore witness or actually been a part or been pranked by Eli Manning?
I've never been pranked by E. Obviously we got mostly coming of age Eli. So I played with for 6 years with the Giants. So 5 years as a teammate. And I think he was beginning to come into that from a leadership comfort standpoint. Eli's all business. I mean, like, he's all business and he has that side that's been well documented. So I think the early years with those formative years was like, we didn't see that as much. Of course, he'll be jovial, crack jokes. But, I think it was basically toward those emerging years, his fourth year, where we really started to see, penis confettis and the, dying of people's shoes. And it was all kinds of fun stuff between him and O'Hara, where that locker room got to be real special. No doubt.
Like going into that same kind of discussion, what do you have a specific memory? And I know everybody out there is going to be like, it's a catch, of course. I mean, do you have a specific memory that stands out in your mind from your career?
Yeah, I mean the catch is the obvious one, but I think there and that's like such a special moment. I've got the chance to share my faith journey along with catch, and that's kind of like that was like the moment of approval, affirmation. It was the moment where I knew that I kind of had arrived in the sense of knowing that I can deliver on a big stage. But something that's just as almost as close. And I played in the old Big East, right? So I actually got my little Big East second team on Big East. So that's Miami, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Boston College, the old days.
Right.
And I think for 3 years straight, sophomore, junior, and my senior year against Virginia Tech, those were the Michael Vick years. And in my senior year, he was gone, but they were still ranked top 5. We ended up knocking them off in a triple overtime. I had 229 yards receiving. And for the 3rd year in a row against Virginia Tech, I blocked the punt. So, that was for me, that was the most satisfying because I always hung my hat on being a complete football player. I'm a dog. I'm different. So I don't toot my own horn that much, but I can score a touchdown and go down to make the hit on kickoff inside the 20, block a punt, and affect the game in so many different ways. So that was an iconic performance, in relation to college football and how you make an impact on the game.
Yeah, I love it. I remember reading about and seeing some clips about you. You were just a monster when it came to special teams, man. I love it.
Yeah, it was definitely. I would like to say that I contributed to making it a thing before it was a thing. I remember whispers of guys who obviously created opportunities for themselves as special teams players, and that's kind of the pool that I had to put myself in because it didn't come easy for me as a wide receiver, and I always felt like I had the talent to make plays at that level, but having a sense of self-awareness and really realizing how to create opportunities, I think that's something that can be difficult for young men, young talented guys who are ultra confident, and it's tough to work through the emotions of things not working out. And I just had to find my lane, and that was a lane that created an opportunity for me throughout, to have a 7-year career in the league.
Absolutely. So the draft is coming up. This is something I was just thinking of whenever you're talking about younger players. With the draft coming up, everything happening here pretty quick. It's a pretty incredible time. I love April. My wife gets kind of annoyed whenever April comes around because she knows that's when football is starting again. Because I'm year round. I'm obsessed with fantasy football. I love football. But when she's like, "Wait a minute, April draft, dang."
Here we go again.
Do you have any words of advice and encouragement for any of these kids about to get drafted?
Hey man, I think my true words of advice is maximize every opportunity. That was my DNA. I think what happens is in today's current athlete is so dynamic. I mean, they are so elite in relation to athleticism, confidence. They're building brands. They're out here killing the game. These guys in high school with mixtapes, it's out of control. So what happens is that sense of confidence, you carry that into first step Division I or whatever level you plan on. Now you get to the league, and it's really all about your mental. It's about understanding this is a super unique opportunity, and you have to get your ego out the way to make the most of every single one of them. So, and like I said, because there's other things at play other than your performance, other than your ability, other than, your raw confidence or some of the factors that really allow them to be successful at previous levels. And it's mostly mental, it's mostly grit, it's mostly, how well you fit within the scheme is things that are going to be more out of their control. So, man, grind up. That my pathway prepared me for some of that, right? It was like, you're not a perfect fit, but where do you fit? Are you really good at one thing? Those are the kind of things I try to. Hey, man, what are you really, really good at? It's great if you have, but if you're really, really good at one thing, you actually might be able to pave a career off of being amazing at one thing. So it's just kind of creating awareness for these guys in that way, where they can see it, not be discouraged by having to adapt. and seize the moment.
Exactly. As you were saying that, it makes perfect sense. Looking like at a guy like Devin Hester or like a Cordarrelle Patterson, the way that they fit it, like they were like, okay, well, we're going to be used more in the return game. And then now look at Cordarrelle. He finally ended up finding a place where they're going to actually use him the way he needs to be used. You're absolutely right. Get him where you
And
fit
look
in.
how long that took for Cordarrelle. Like, just think, I mean, like this dude and teams have been trying, right? And it looks like Atlanta has definitely maximized that. And at this point, this late in his career, I mean, it's been very clear how dynamic the guy is. But as far as really finding that true maximization of his skill set, it's kind of beautiful to see this past season.
Yeah, absolutely. So I take you absolutely watched the game, of course, I'm sure. Is there anybody who stands out to you that you're just like, man, that guy is really special? Which, I mean, you can say that about it. You're in the NFL.
Yeah.
Obviously the best of the best.
It's definitely a lot. I think I find myself more impressed with defensive players than offensive players.
Okay.
Because there's such an instinctual and physical element to the game that I fell in love with. So I find myself more impressed with like the Devin Whites. Some of the, linebacker is becoming it's hard to find linebackers, dominant linebackers these days because they need to be able to cover. They need to be able to do it all, right? How can you're not seeing back in the day linebackers with 250 pounds hitting linemen. They can't be that anymore, so I think when I see a great linebacker who's 235 pounds, who's laying the blows, I kind of get caught up with that. My favorite players back in the day were like the Brian Dawkins. There were safeties, Ed Reeds, and it's very rare that you're going to fit some of those molds. But I think it's the grit factor that I get more caught up with. Like the dude, not just physically talented, but they mean, they nasty, they got it.
Yeah.
So it's not a whole lot of players that I think we got a lot of athletic dynamos that they're special talents, and it's not as many that have that raw dog, that that junkyard dog from back in the day grind. So
yeah,
it's but there's some special players in the league for sure.
Man, I did not expect that answer. It makes
yeah, that's just
be like, yeah, this receiver
off the top of my head. If you start talking about players, it'll probably stir up a little more. But it's not like I said. When I'm thinking about, obviously, it's been some disappointments out of the Giants camp. Not just like there's been tons of talent that you felt like always has never materialized. So the teams that I'm watching the most, the Ravens are always, obviously I played my last season with the Ravens. Peters is definitely one of my favorite players.
Oh yeah.
And obviously got hurt last year, but the DB, like I just love playmakers. Of course he's hilarious too. So I mean, yeah, Marcus Peters is. So it's players like that. It was a fun run with the Rams this past year. Seeing Odell was super tough to watch. Watch him come back and then get hurt again because I'm rooting for this guy. He was my first rookie class when I came back in the front office with the Giants. So I've seen that whole evolution. So just rooting for him. But yeah, he had the complete package in relation to mindset. But of course, he was in his early years. I think he was just emotionally unstable. It was tough, So things like that. Like he had the complete package mentality wise and skill set wise. But it was just some of those other factors of being able to deal with the noise that really created more challenge.
Right.
There's definitely a lot of factors that really excite me about guys.
Yeah. I know what you mean with the media attention and things like that. Kind of took hold of him a little bit. Now he seems like he's getting past all that stuff. So it's awesome.
Yeah. It takes a unique environment. And I think there's not a lot of teams that really understand and consider the modern player. And there's some unique, like this is an upload generation. They whether you take their information or not, they expect you to at least listen. And that's where we're seeing a lot more disconnects. Like when Jalen Ramsey exits Jacksonville, it's because of things like that. Like, nah, man, you need to hear me. And there's some things that is really right about it, and it can go really wrong if somebody plays that card too early or out of season, right? It's like, and that's some of the things that you want to help young dynamic players understand and manage how to maximize this short window that they got. So I totally get it, but yeah, man, these dudes are figuring it out.
Yeah. So what were your responsibilities as an executive with the Giants?
Yeah, I was doing player development, which we call player engagement. And I mean, the primary responsibilities, we onboard the rookies from a standpoint of education, culture, and graft them into our own culture, what to expect in the NFL. And of course, I'm working with the entire roster, managing relationships between players and front office. So it's really a tremendous liaison role. If it's properly executed, depending on the leadership of the team, it's one of the more fulfilling responsibilities that a team can have, or it could be a nightmare because they might not see the value. And I think I've probably experienced both, unfortunately, in my time with the Giants. I think the resources were there, the understanding of how dynamic this role can be. There was definitely a lot of room to grow there. So the role, working with players, no brainer. They're amazing young men. They have a lot to learn, and it can be really gratifying. Or it could be the most frustrating job in the world day to day. So, but like I said, the need is there.
Yeah, hats off to the front office with everything going on with Kadarius Toney and all that. Like I gotta say, whenever I first read the information, like the thing about Kadarius Toney, where they're looking for a trade because what was it, mini camp that he just decided not to show up. I guess he didn't even make a call, nothing.
Just don't care. These are different dudes.
Yeah.
And I think, it's kind of like, sometimes it's like playing chess, right? Like you got to understand what piece can get the job done. And I think there's missed opportunities because, depending on, there might be one person in that organization that the player respects. Mm-hmm. And if you don't play that piece, they're gone. I mean, like you don't have an audience with them. And if the people don't understand that, then there might be a missed opportunity. We're trying to save these players. When I say save them, like not like savior, but you don't want to see a Kadarius Toney go wrong. Sure. But they can create problems because of their immaturity and lack of understanding. So these front offices are working overtime trying to make things work. And there's only but so much you can do. But if you don't understand how to deploy resources, and that's high level leadership type of stuff that I think like I said, my own personal growth in the NFL ecosystem helps me understand and see those things. But if they don't know how to deploy assets, then there might be missed opportunities, maybe like the Odell Beckham situation. Maybe Odell could have stayed a Giant, maybe not. I think those are the things that every team is trying to master and figure out dealing with today's athlete, that, self-awareness is diminishing.
Sure, absolutely. I know I could probably guess the answer to this question because, you won a Super Bowl together, but for some odd reason, and this is the last I heard, I could be out of date on this, but Eli Manning being in the discussion for the Hall of Fame, that's actually quite, to me, he's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
No-brainer. Yeah. But they have people who are like, oh, well, I don't understand that. I don't get it. What do you think?
Well, I think it's that, like, for the sake of, it's not shock TV, but for the sake of having a conversation, I do believe it is a conversation, not whether he gets in, but when he gets in.
Right.
I do believe it's a no-brainer that he gets in. But like I said, I'm one of these dudes where I love this guy. He has been the amazing consummate teammate in so many different ways, but I can't sit there and act like there's no argument on the other side of it when you look at the entire body of work, right? He led two amazing teams, one of which he was an emerging leader. The second one where he was the clear reason, I would say, that they won that second championship. And I think I said the first one is, this is a guy that had the temperament for New York City, and if you put the proper pieces around him, then we could do something special. And I think that's what Eli Manning was as a quarterback, and we shouldn't be ashamed. He wasn't Destro. He was the Cobra Commander, right? Like, he wasn't the goon. But if you protect him, then we can take over the world, right? So that was Eli Manning, and and it was the front office, it was the players around him that helped him to really maximize his skill sets. But ultimately, when you look at the argument, it's an argument. If you look at those other seasons, I mean, how many Pro Bowls did he make? You know, it's like two, right? It's like, so it's, and I think it's one of those things when you think about the Hall of Fame, maybe we're seeing diminishing values because players are playing so much longer. It's like when you look at the pre, let's say the pre-Marino era, like, you know, quarterbacks weren't throwing the ball, right? Like, so it's all these factors, but we know in their era, they were so dominant. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the part of it that people disconnect from when they want to diminish his legacy, which I would never do. You don't diminish his legacy, but I do entertain the reality that, hey, man, he had a couple, he had some stuff that wasn't that sexy. He wasn't.
Yeah, the thing that I was thinking of that'd be hilarious is what the bust would look like. If it would be if it would be the Manning face,
yes. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Oh my God!
I guarantee. I bet you Peyton, his brother, would end up
he
to make one
pay to get another bus made, right? Like, like that would be fantastic. I think I would pay to get a replica of the other bus.
That'd be so good.
So that's honestly what makes his career so amazing. Like, I know that in so many different ways I don't belong in random conversations, but that's the thing. That's the unique thing about, I think Eli is one of these like favored dynamic athletes. I mean, like, it's like sometimes you're just chosen to accomplish some things. And that's how I look at Eli's career. Like this kid got a little sprinkle of golden touch in him.
Right.
And it's like there's some special ingredients on the inside of the kid that when you mix this thing together right, you get the impossible. Right. And I think I share some similarities with him. And I think we always had like this little subtle connection. Like I never claimed to be a premier receiver, but I was a dog though. I could deliver when the lights was on, I had a little trouble getting separation, but I never had a problem making plays, right? So it's like that. So but I felt like that was more our connection, was the respect value. And like this guy, I can trust him. He's going to be where he's going to need to be. But ultimately I also had some of that element where I always felt like there was some special moments that was just set apart for me, the Providence element. And that's my connection to E. That dude definitely deserves his, he's going to get into the Hall. Like I said, I wouldn't say he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think, if Terrell Owens is in the first ballot Hall of Famer, I think, that's the kind of stuff I'm saying. Like, let's cut it out. Like, and I'm saying, we know Terrell Owens was a first ballot Hall of Famer. So that's the kind of stuff that it will be an atrocity, and it has zero to do with Eli Manning.
Right.
But if, that would be a total slap in the face to the whole process if we're gonna, have those kind of dynamics.
Right. So this is what I've been really looking forward to talking about with you, is you as a person. Paying attention and speaking with you over these past few weeks, and it's just something I love to see, is just how you're a devoted husband, just an awesome dad, and you getting to this point with your faith and everything. I get a little choked up thinking about it, because it's an amazing thing, man. Like you overcame so much getting to where you're at now. Would you mind speaking a little bit on that?
Yeah, man, it's definitely who I am. And I think Hubert Davis on his Final Four run, and he kind of had a quick little media moment where, when you're, whether I'm a devoted Christian, whether I'm a radical Christian, whatever it is, right? Whatever you want, because everybody has to place you somewhere. And all I am is a committed believer. I just believe God. And the reason why is I can't ignore how he's worked in my life, right? So what does that do? It creates a crazy amount of honor, love, and devotion to the God that I serve. And kind of rubs people all kinds of different ways, and people start getting weird. Now, that's what I'm not afraid of anything. So we can have like I'm the most comfortable, uncomfortable conversationalist. I mean, like, let's have all the conversations because I think that's how you grow. So my journey has been about, a young man finding his way, and by God's grace, he found me and really restored and made my life more than I could have ever imagined to be. I've had the drugs, I had the alcohol, alcohol at 14, marijuana at 15. Of course, the traditional vices that a lot of young men are enduring today, dealing with pain, dealing with rejection and all that crap. Mm-hmm. And so all the way up through 24 when I'm in the jail cell, and that was like where life changed for me. So that was like my little road to Damascus. I cry out to God. I wasn't raised in church either, so I'm not even like this religious hallelujah dude. I just was like, God, I need you. And next thing you know, my life is radically changed in like the span of 2 weeks. So what am I supposed to say to that? Like, God is so that's the part that's really authentic for me. And I think when everyone else is telling your story, which is why I'm so glad for the day and age that we're living in, they craft it to their own audience for fear, right? And so, yeah, that made me, that allowed me to become the husband I couldn't be when I was unfaithful. It allowed me to become the father I couldn't be when I was selfish. And I'm living the dream. And it allowed me to have the experience of the greatest catch in Super Bowl history. That was literally foretold the night before the game. So there's so many different, like details along the way that makes me say, man, Jesus is awesome. I'm going to live the rest of my life for him. I'm going to inspire and share that great news with anyone that would listen in the proper context, right? I'm not the dude at work trying to share the gospel. Because, if the policy says don't share it, that's dishonoring God too. So I'm like, hey man, just be who you are wherever you go, right? Be authentic. And that's been the greatest expression. And that's what I do appreciate about today's world with social media, where you can just craft your life, live your life, share your story, find your audience and rock with them.
That's one thing I really like about you too, is that it's not, when I was growing up, my mom, shout out Sharon, she was my dad was one of those guys who was always working. So when he'd show up to games and stuff, I'd choke up on the court. Like I'd be like, oh God, he was just working so much. And so he didn't have a big impact as far as faith goes in my life. My mom did, however, and she did it the way back in the day where she would just basically just shove it down my throat.
You're
gonna pray. And so it's like it got to the point to where I was just I wouldn't really say that I was acting out or doing anything like terribly wrong or whatever, but I just kind of got away from it. And then, whenever I see someone like you or oh man, there's this kid, I'm trying to remember his name, but he does talks on YouTube and stuff, like you're saying, this day and age, everybody can share their stories and stuff, where he explains everything really well, like a Jesse Duplantis and all these other guys, if you know them. It helps a lot because they don't force it.
Yeah.
And this day and age, also you have other things that are going on, which I won't speak on too much right now because I don't feel like getting canceled or whatever. But like,
don't worry, I've been there before, man. I had another commitment. It's not fun.
Yeah, it's you get so many other things that you could look at and be like, but everybody else is starting to shove their agenda down your throat and stuff. It's just like, man, you have to accept that stuff, but God forbid you preach a little bit or try and bring some light from the word of God or anything to the world, and they'll just be like, wait a minute, what hang on, what are you doing? Yeah, seriously, what are you? But it's refreshing to see a gentleman such as yourself who's gone through so much with the addiction whenever you were a kid, or I wouldn't necessarily say addiction. I'm not sure. I wasn't there, but
you know what I call it? I call it like I was like a functional alcoholic, meaning like I didn't drink every day, but every weekend I was blacking out.
Right.
And that's not, like most people, of course, when you're in it, you're celebrating yourself, right? You're celebrating all your social dynamics. Like, hey, man, we were lit, and part of it. So I totally understand, right? No one wants to talk about the shame the next morning or the uncomfortable moments that they're dealing with inside. And so the cool thing about coming out of that for me was like, I could be real about this. I could actually be real about it. It wasn't cool not waking up the next day, not knowing what happened. I didn't feel great about it, but I didn't also know how to overcome it. I was a slave to it. So, I wasn't the worst. Like I said, I wasn't the worst human in the world. And I don't think that's what this conversation will ever be about. You don't need to be the worst. It's about knowing that you have a need, right? And I think that's what my life is all about, is just being authentic. And the crazy thing that God did for me, I kind of like the moment I came into the faith, it was like I didn't have any shame over my life anymore. Like that's something that a lot of people will deal with, even as believing. Like I was just like almost too uncut, man. I'm like, yo, man, I had chlamydia, man.
Like, take it easy.
Like, right? And it was because I was just that free. So like, I had to learn some discretion, as you know, finding the right audience is like who's ready for what. But you're just trying to help people understand that there is that reality. Like this is not just a religious story. This is not, this. And I get it with skepticism. There's need for some skepticism. I get it. We don't want to swallow the wrong dose, the wrong pill. But I think the way that my life has evolved, and I definitely did a lot of things wrong as a young believer. So I'm not, I don't think you need to be perfect or try to be perfect. I think we want to represent Christ as best we can. And that comes with actually growing in knowledge of who he is, and not just mentally, but experientially. Like I tell people all the time, Jesus is a person, and if you can't, if your interactions never lead to that person, then the transformation will never take root. So it's been a joy just living that out. Like I said, Hubert Davis said that, right, man, wherever I'm not doing anything, it's just, that's my life. Like we're eventually going to get around to it. The more you talk to me. So it's all good. I appreciate that.
All right. Absolutely, man. And it's, I love what you're doing. Keep doing it. Because it's
no doubt, man. That's all you can do, man, is I tell people I've been given this gift of the greatest play in NFL history. I'm coming back and I'm establishing some things, like, because I've been off the grid a little bit, just doing life, like doing life, being responsible. There are things that I value more than sports, so but when you have this place in sports history, it's a tough place. Like I want to get to this, but I don't have a nanny, I got 7 kids. Like, I tell people I'm the everyday man's hero. Like I'm out here trying to figure out how to get things done. So, I've definitely had some unique experiences, but yeah, my life is authentically mine. I'm devoted to the things that really matter. And, I'm really just trying to encourage everybody that they can get great done, so I'm full-time everything. And I think when you alleviate yourself from false burdens, then you'll be more content with what you did or what you didn't accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. And you in saying that, I mean, you definitely help, and I wouldn't really say allow, but I mean, you help and allow these guys who, or ladies, men who see your story and everything, understand that nobody's perfect, and you can get past these negatives in your negatives in your life and everything, and turn them into a positive, or, just forgive yourself. So
yeah,
it's a great lesson, man. And I can't thank you enough, David, for coming on the show and talking about it and being here with me, man. This is probably one of my favorite interviews that I've had. This is great.
Brother, it's all love, man. I love your work. Love the top hat. You're killing it. Sneaker game, right? You out here doing it, bro.
Yeah,
everybody deserves their shot. Like I said, I'm the underdog. And so I love seeing guys going for it, and I think, like I said, if you create an audience of 100, 1,000, 10,000, or 100,000, it's still an audience. So, man, whatever light you shine it bright. Keep grinding, and you'll make the impact that you need to make.
Man, I appreciate that so much. It means a lot. Thank you, David. Mr. David Tyree, thank you so much for being on the show, my man. And
hope to have me, man. Stay plugged in.
Yes, sir. That's what's
get great done. Hit me on the platforms. Tell your people.
I got you. Don't worry about that, man. I'm spreading the word.
No doubt, man. Appreciate you.
My pleasure, partner.